Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this felicitation ceremony in honor of Professor M.S. Shunmugam, or Professor MSS as he is affectionately known. Professor MSS has had a long and illustrious career here at IIT Madras, spanning over 40 years. He joined here as a PhD student in 1973, and except for a few years when he was at IIT Bombay and a couple of years at Michigan Technological University, he has been here. Over the course of his career, he has donned many hats and contributed to the Institute in multiple ways. True to his name, he has many facets. The one thing that underlines all of his activities, though, is the quest for excellence and perfection. Anything less than that will not do for him, as any of us who has worked with him know very well. I'm very pleased and feel privileged to be here today. He was my teacher during my BTech days here at IIT Madras. He was head of the department at the time that I joined as a faculty member here. And he was also the co-guide for my first MS student. As a teacher, mentor, and colleague, his support at crucial times has been very invaluable to me. In fact, I could very well say that his phenomenal memory is the reason that I am here today at IIT Madras. I think he knows what I'm talking about. So we may have each interacted with him in a few ways, but I hope this function gives us an opportunity to see the other wonderful facets of Professor MSS and how he has influenced so many of us. It is also an opportunity for us to recognize his wife and family, whose support definitely has been crucial to his functioning and his success. I'm sure many of us here have wonderful memories to share. Due to time constraints, I'm sorry that we can't give everyone who wants to speak a chance. So if you'd like to share a thought, we are passing around the note cards, and if you'd like to write something in there, please do so. The volunteers will collect it. If we have the time, we will share it. Otherwise, we will give it to him as something to cherish. So please sit back now and enjoy a short presentation of Professor Shunmugam down memory lane. Something more. 7 years ago, when I was in the US and applying for a faculty position here, I went to the ME webpage and I told my husband, Professor Shunmugam looks exactly as I remember him. He hasn't changed one bit. So when I joined, so that was 16 years ago. So I said, he looks exactly as he did 16 years ago. So when I joined, I realized it was true, except for the hair. So I guess the department has updated the web page since then. But this was, I think, a nice trip down memory lane, showing his career at IIT Madras. So I would now like to invite Professor Shunmugam and Mrs. Shunmugam to the dais and request Professor Ramaswamy and Dr. Kamala to honor them. Please come to the dais. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kamala and Professor Ramaswamy. I would now like to invite Professor D.J. Whitehouse, who likes to go first. He is the Emeritus Professor of Engineering Science and formerly Chief Scientist, School of Engineering, University of Warwick in Coventry, UK, to felicitate Professor Shunmugam. Professor Whitehouse's association with Professor MSS began through his work with Professor Radhakrishnan in the 70s, and they have continued to interact since then due to their mutual interest in surface metrology. The interest culminated in a joint seminal paper in 2013 in the International Journal of Precision Technology. Professor Whitehouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shunmugam. It's a real pleasure to be here to commemorate your felicitation. I never got such an award when I retired. I remember, we go back more than 40 years. And I originally got involved with the work that he was doing and also the work, more importantly, with what Professor Radhakrishnan was doing. We were both very involved in the filtering of surfaces, and Professor Radhakrishnan was working with the Germans, Professor von Weingraber in Brunswick and the PTB in Germany, and they had a very mechanical idea of how to filter surfaces, which I completely and utterly disagreed with. And it was concerned with a mechanical device, a mechanical method of looking at the different wavelengths on surfaces. And they used a mechanical method, or the idea was, and I was working with an electrical method. Anyway, the point was, we got two camps who were interested, the German camp and the UK camp. Professor von Weingraber versus me and my boss, Mr. Reason. And this went on for a number of years, very friendly, or sometimes friendly. In fact, never very friendly, with the truth known. We sort of, I think in the end, we agreed to disagree. But Professor Radhakrishnan moved to IIT Madras with Professor Shunmugam, who started working in digital techniques for trying to simulate this mechanical device. And I carried on with my electrical work, and we carried on effectively for a few years. And we met at conferences. I came to IIT Madras, and I said to him, you know, I came in early 70s when I first met you, and he said to me, no, you didn't. I said, I did. I came in early 70s. He said, you came in 1980. And he's right. He's got a most phenomenal memory. And I thought, this is tremendous. He knows more about me than I do. And the thing I'd like to bring out is that we worked in good cooperation on different aspects of the same problem. And the fact that we could work mutually together, and I must say with Professor Radhakrishnan, he's had something to do with it, we were able to bring together what we thought was a coherent picture of how to tackle the analysis of surfaces. And he did some tremendous work on error analysis and computational geometry, which I think is superb stuff. We still continue to work in this area, and one of the things that's most important is that although I always thought that his work on the what we called the E system, and Professor Radhakrishnan E system was totally irrelevant, the new generation of filtering, which is called morphology filtering, is actually based upon the system that these two were working on. So there's been a very big link between the work we were doing in the 1970s and 80s to what's now current advanced technology, morphological filtering. And do you know, there's a link between the most advanced filtering and the work that was carried on at IIT Madras with that man there and that man there over a period of 20 years, and that link is joining the work that was done 40 years ago with the most modern work today, and has linked it all through to IIT Madras. I think that is a tremendous achievement, actually, and I think you ought to applaud it. So, Professor Shunmugam, I think it's time that I gave you some advice about retirement. Yeah. My philosophy of life is you should always attempt to be uncomfortable. Because if you are too comfortable, then you go backwards. Luckily for me, my wife agrees. I had my 49th wedding anniversary last week. Unfortunately, my wife is not present here today. She's cleaning the house. But my success, I will attribute very greatly to my wife. And I think exactly the same thing goes there. Your success is attributed to your wife. So on that score, I'd like to wish you the very best of wishes and very best for the future. And you must continue the work, otherwise you've got me to answer for. Do you understand? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Whitehouse. Our next speaker will be Professor V. Radhakrishnan, Professor Shunmugam's guru. Professor VR was with IIT Madras from 1964 till 2002 as a faculty in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. And he was a pioneer as far as the field of metrology is concerned at IIT Madras. He started courses in metrology way back in 1964 and established the metrology lab at IIT Madras with state-of-the-art facilities. Professor Shunmugam was his first doctoral student to work in the area. Incidentally, Professor Shunmugam was also the MC for Professor Radhakrishnan's felicitation ceremony when he retired. So I now invite Professor VR to felicitate Professor Shunmugam.
Yeah, this time I'm going to use a formal written one, but in between I'll be digressing a little bit. It's a pleasure for me to be here this evening on the occasion of the conference arranged to felicitate one of my PhD students who did a commendable job in the area of metrology. What happened is that when I returned from Germany with the rival of Professor, having worked with the rival of Professor Whitehouse, I was under the impression that this area is going to flourish for a long time. He made it really difficult for others to work because he always said that what he did was the right one and the other one is not going to be the one which is going to be popular. And he himself now told that the advanced technologies have accepted that one as one of the best. So thereby we are, always he said we were fighting each other, of course in a friendly fashion, but finally both have won, and I'm sure that that's the way in which research has to progress. Now coming to Professor Shunmugam, I came back after my PhD, or rather I came back after my research and did my PhD officially here in 1970, and I took a decision not to guide anyone for 2 more years, because I should be little free from the thinking of the work which I have done so that I won't push that one again to another candidate. So I just delayed for 2 years, and then the first candidate joined me in 1972, that was Professor Selvam. He naturally had to do some work, and I didn't want to give the same topic which I had in mind or continuation of my work. But then the reason was not that I was worried about that one, but there were no equipment for doing that one. So effectively Professor Selvam did something on experimentation, namely on generation of roughness in turning and tool wear effect and plowing effect and other things. One day he told me that somebody else is interested in doing work with me. I said, yes, I'm very much willing to take somebody, because already 2 years have passed after taking the first candidate. So I was prepared to have the next one who has to face the consequences of getting involved in research with me, and thereby he mentioned about Professor Shunmugam's name. I said, okay, I don't have any objection to that one, because definitely I can, but at those times it was not easy for getting a candidate, it was not easy. There were a number of equations to be completed to get one, and fortunately or unfortunately things worked out reasonably well. Unfortunately in the sense that there are people who thought that it may not work out, but it worked out, and thereby Professor Shunmugam was allotted to me. At that time it was called allotting, allotted to me for doing PhD work. Naturally I had the tendency to offer him the topic on which I have been working for some time, and which I thought at that young age, you think that that's a place where you are going to have the whole thing come out, what you want to get out of research. So I said, you will work on the E-system on which I started working, and the facilities were not that complete here. Fortunately, we had the IBM computer just installed at that time. Then I said, I have got data of the profiles, but unfortunately those data were in punch tapes. You remember in the 60s, there were not much of things to work with. You can't have a laptop and do the work. So you have to do the hard way. So punch tapes were there in bundles of that one. Unfortunately, IBM never takes the punch tape. You have to make it into cards. I gave the punch tape, asked him to put a teleprinter and get all the data, and then punch out the, I don't know how he did it, but definitely it has been, should have been only manual. And that's a tremendous job, thousands and thousands of numbers to be punched into the system, and then use that one to work on that. He did a commendable job on that one and introduced the E-system in the 3D area. originally it was the 2D area it was done, but you can extend it to 3D easily, unlike the electrical system, where there is a limitation for the 3D to come out, because here the surface is taken as a reference directly, and thereby 3D reference can be done. That's about the research one. What we have done in the area was, I remember, he used to murmur, no one bothers about this type of work, I don't know whether anyone is going to accept it. It was at the CIRP meeting, if I remember correctly, he presented a paper, and the same person who is sitting here in front asked a question. That was Professor Whitehouse. That evening he came and told, there's a lot of interest in the subject. Till that time he thought, it's a abandoned area which no one bothers about nowadays. But I'm happy that you have done the work, and now it's on the cutting edge to a certain extent in our area, and thereby it has not been in vain. Professor Shunmugam did his PhD, and then of course he was for a short period here as a faculty member, and then moved to IIT Bombay, where he was under the superb guidance of Professor Somasundaram and Professor Ramaswamy, who is here now. And that made a culture of research and understanding which is essential for thriving in an academic field. And he did that one and came out here, I think in 1982, 80. You came here and then joined, and there were a tussle where you will be sitting. Finally, things worked out well. And thereby he started work again in the area of metrology. And I noticed that, he has got varied interests in different fields, and he has got a little bit of partial love for gears, because I remember the first PhD was in gears, and later on also whenever he got a chance he will move to the machine design group, which I never liked. Getting out of your hand and then going to somebody else's hand, which is not a right thing to do, especially in academics. And he started doing certain work in tribology, connected areas, gears, etc. Then he also spread out his area of work into industrial side, the computational areas, optimization, form measurements, etc. So you can see the versatility of a person who has done a narrow area in the beginning, has completed into has emerged as a versatile researcher who can tackle any area, provided it's known as a really problematic area which requires considerable amount of thinking and working. And he has done it very well, and in the past I'm sure that he might have also got the satisfaction of having done this type of work, because academics is something which cannot be counted from the money point of view. If you like it, there is no other profession like that. I can guarantee, even if I am, out of anything, if I get a chance, I will talk. The problem here is that normally I tune my talk for 45 to 50 minutes, which is class time. And I'm sure that I'm not going to do that one now at the moment, because automatically it stops only after 45 or 50 minutes. But I will see to it that I will do it within a short span, so that others will have enough opportunity to felicitate him in this occasion. Now, coming to his personal qualities, one thing which I liked very much is critical. There are occasions where people have to be critical, otherwise everyone thinks that everything is working out very well. Many a time he has given as a background for reasoning out why it has happened, and that allows us to think as to what could be the ideal way of working out strategies for completing certain requirements in academics as well as in the research. So I worked with him till I retired. As somebody said, he bid farewell to me as a MC, and possibly I think your student should have done it here, but she was not directly, he was only a BTech student. The other one was, I think, Samuel, who is organizing that one. He is his student, and I'm sure that the setup which you have created here will allow your next PhD students to again organize another send off to another of the professors, And that's a good trend, because Professor Whitehouse said, he didn't have that much of advantage when he retired. But I'm sure that all the people who are getting out of this one, especially in our group, we would like to have such occasions so that we can all meet together and exchange. Everyone says, death is an equalizing factor. Everything is over, then that everyone is equal. To a certain extent, even you can say that superannuation is also a little bit of equalizer, because you are not having any ego afterwards. So you are simple, you understand your position very well in the society, because you are transforming from one to another, whereby you understand that you are the one who are going to stand of you, and no one else is going to help you out. So I'm sure that Professor Shunmugam is transiting to another phase of life, but he will not be able to, I'm sure that he will not be able to go out of what he has been doing, and he will continue to do it in one way or other, whether it's gears or something else, but still, he will attach to academics without any difficulty. So I wish him and his wife a nice future, further investigating on the areas of your concern, both academic and otherwise. Thank you very much, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry I didn't work in the area of metrology. Professor MSS and I have still been working together since I joined here, so we have 2 joint students so far. So one has graduated and he is here. The other is in his early stages. Since we are on the subject of metrology, I can think of 2 differences between metrology and Professor MSS. So after manufacturing, a surface may appear smooth, but metrology kind of tells you the roughness when you look closely. In contrast, Professor MSS may appear a little rough and tough on the outside, but all his students know how soft and kind he is inside. The other difference is that in metrology, the tolerances are inevitable. But Professor Shunmugam has no tolerance for mediocrity. He has 0 tolerance for mediocrity. So I just wanted to mention that. I would now like to invite Professor T. Sundararajan, the head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering here at IIT Madras, and someone who has interacted with Professor MSS at multiple levels as a student and colleague, to felicitate him. Sir.
Good evening. This morning when Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy shared his personal experiences as a BTech student from the earlier years, I thought he stole words from my mouth. Now Sujata did the same thing, so I'm left with less material to talk about. Anyway, I went through the 5-year program between 1973 to 78 as a student here. Those days, because of our intense collaboration with Germany, of course the whole program was very intense in terms of practical engineering aspects. And of course I should frankly share here that my own aptitude for engineering was such that if somebody asked me how does a return screw rotate, clockwise or anti-clockwise, my answer would be invariably wrong at that time. Today maybe I will be 50% correct. So that is the level of my engineering aptitude. So with that, obviously I had difficulties with the practical engineering courses, and we had 4 courses in drawing actually, and the 4th course was on assembly drawing, and Professor Shunmugam was my teacher for that course. And that course involved, of course you have to specify all details in a drawing, right from dimensioning and also the tolerance in that, and then the welding symbols, the chamfering, filleting and whatnot, even surface finish. So of course surface finish, depending on the level of surface finish, you say 1 triangle, 2 triangle, 3 triangle, etc. I couldn't figure out on what basis you will specify that. To be on the safer side, I will put 3 or 4 triangle on every surface. And then of course I got a lot of scolding from Professor Shunmugam for that. And with level of my performance in that course, otherwise I was a above average student. I had 75% and A plus average in the whole entire course. But then practical courses I had difficulty. And in this drawing course, I was sure that with my performance during the semester, and of course Professor Shunmugam's face is so inscrutable you cannot read whether he is positive or negative. I was certain that I was going for a negative result in that course. And of course, after finishing the course, there was vacation. I went home, always worried about whether I'll pass the course or not. I was certain I'll fail. But then when I came back after vacation, I was pleasantly surprised that I had passed the course with a B grade, that is 50%, just passed. And I couldn't figure out how it happened. But later on I figured out, just like Sujata said, that his tough appearance is a facade. There is a kind person inside and a fair person too, fair and neutral person in every respect. So it was clear that maybe he could see my sincerity. If not the level of work, at least sincerity probably was there. And that might have been the reason why I passed the course. Anyway, later on, as a colleague and head of the department for the last 3 years, I have had more opportunities to interact with him. And in fact, what has impressed me very much is his meticulous attention for detail, and as Sujata mentioned, high expectation of good quality work, not only for himself but for all the people, the students, faculty, colleagues, everybody around him. And these things, and he's also a strict disciplinarian. All these things put together create some kind of fear in almost everybody. But then once you start moving closely with him, you understand that there is a soft, kind person inside. Somewhat like in Tamil we say this jackfruit, from the outside it looks very rough, but inside is very sweet flesh which is there. So that is a kind of, my interaction with Professor Shunmugam has given me that feeling. And as head of the department, there have been many occasions when I was facing some challenge or the other, some decision where you want to be fair to the person, even though there may be a mistake, whether a student or a faculty member. And every occasion I have gone to Professor Shunmugam for his wise counsel, and I have greatly benefited. Of course, I am sure that department has benefited from those kind of, nobody else knows about it, the younger faculty may not know, but there have been several occasions where I have taken wise counsel from him. So really, I would like to pray to God that he should have a very long and active life, and advise us professionally as well as personally. Of course, this institute and our department has a lot to gain from him. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor T.S. And my apologies to you too for taking the words out of your mouth. I would now like to invite Professor V. Jayaprakash. Professor Jayaprakash was my guide for the BTech project here, and I'm very happy to see him today after 22 years. He retired from IIT Madras. He took voluntary retirement in order to pursue his passion for social service, and he's a very close friend of Professor Shunmugam. And I invite you now, sir, to felicitate Professor Shunmugam.
Dear Professor Shunmugam and Mrs. Shunmugam, all those assembled here, the dignitaries, the friends and students of Professor Shunmugam and his guides. It's a wonderful occasion to be here. I made it exclusively to be here on this occasion. Almost both Professor Shunmugam and myself, we joined around the same time. All those who spoke about earlier, they spoke about his academic performances, but I want to touch upon the friendly side of what Professor Shunmugam is. Of course, people were talking about, Professor Sundararajan talked about Professor Shunmugam to be the drawing teacher. So those days, the ME laboratory, the mechanical design section, was given the responsibility of handling all the drawing programs. So In fact, all people from every laboratory they were handling, so I was also handling the drawing along with Professor Shunmugam. I remember we both used to travel from Park Station by train, and from Guindy railway station we used to come together by cycle, and we used to go together back home. And Professor Radhakrishnan was mentioning about Professor Shunmugam's interaction with the mechanical design department on the work on gears, so I was the culprit. So Professor Shunmugam and myself, we were working with some students on the design and manufacture of gears. Not only a friend, a good philosopher and guide also. We had a few projects together, and it was a wonderful interaction with Professor Shunmugam. Professor Sundararajan mentioned about a jackfruit with a sweet fruit inside. Professor Shunmugam, I was thinking there's this title of the International Colloquium on Materials, Manufacturing and Metrology. There are 3 M's, and one more M should have been there. So it should have been Materials, Manufacturing, Metrology, and MSS. I see this wonderful gathering here because of his sweetness, because the way he had been moving with people. Almost everyone alike. He had a balance in his life, and with everyone he was so close, and people were sitting here, everyone will have a personal experience of that kind of closeness, the kind of advice that he had been giving, and the kind of support he had been extending all the time. Working on metrology and trying to measure the surface roughness, he had been working on measuring the mental roughness also. So most of the time, his interactions with the colleagues as well as students, he used to see how he had a way of measuring the mental surface, and he used to guide them, he used to counsel them, and he had a passion for counseling people. So that's how he has attracted so many people today. I wish him a happy, healthy, and a long retired life, and of course never at any time he will be away from technology. We wish and pray that God gives him a healthy, happy life to the family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor MSS has interacted extensively with the Rajalakshmi group of institutions. Their chairperson, Mrs. Thangam Meghanathan, is here today to take part in this happy occasion, and they would like to honor him, so I request the representatives to please come to the dais. Please.
Thank you, Sujata. So I hope you don't have an alien before you. So far, all those who have been speaking are all from within the system, or people who have been closely connected with him on academics. I represent Rajalakshmi institutions, wherein we've had contacts with Professor Shunmugam. Basically, initially we connected with him because of the funded project, TIFAC, wherein it is a tri-party industry, government and institution. he was the chair of that particular thing, and wherein somebody was talking about his fairness, he had to be fair to all the three parties. So he did a wonderful job of that, correcting the institution wherever need be, and correcting the government representatives, and correcting the industry wherever there was a need. It was a very challenging thing, and when we observed, we found that not only the fairness, he has a sort of a sense of humor, and like Professor Whitehouse mentioned, he requested him to be uncomfortable, but actually I always found that he has a way of making people very comfortable, you know. So I suppose he's a person who knows what it is to be uncomfortable. He makes sure that we come out with whatever problems are, and he understands. Of course, with all his intelligence, it's very easy for him to understand. What I would like to share with you is there is that of the Shunmugams, one Muham is an educationist. Apart from being a professor who teaches a particular discipline of engineering, he has, of course, understood what it needs to make a good engineer. And today, you all know in India, if a person is exposed to a sort of an institution such as IIT, it is very easy to get totally absorbed into this environment and not look at anything outside. But a person like him, when we requested him to become a governing council member, he said he agreed, and he used to attend the governing council meetings, where we all used to be very worried about how we should present, but he would make us very comfortable and understand our problems, and he would give us the kind of solutions and suggestions that really worked very good for us. That way we are very thankful to him, and that is one reason why I thought I should be here in person to thank him for all that he has done. Somebody was also mentioning about superannuation being an equalizer. For a person like him, it is a road, these roads, this is not a road that is coming to an end, it's only probably a bend or a slight curve, and there are lots of people like us waiting for professors such as him. You know, it is very difficult to find people who are, who can understand various levels of education provision and the need for such educational institutions and the role of such educational institutions, and encourages them and prepares them for the next step. So there is a, this I'm sure is a long road ahead for him. The person who introduced him, the MC has started with the thing about his quest for excellence and perfection. That is absolutely correct, because we also have Professor Muthukrishnan, your former deputy director, as the advisor for the institutions. When we requested Shunmugam, I also put in a word to Muthukrishnan. He's a wonderful person. If you get him, you are very lucky. So that is the kind of name he has earned, and we are all very happy that. I should not say we are all very happy he is retiring, because we are all here. We can find he can contribute more time for our institutions. But I would say, like, there is definitely a different phase after the retirement, which I am sure a person like him will definitely make use of and provide to the society whatever he could. And like his wife has always been supporting, I am sure she would be supporting on his other initiatives too. With these words, like everybody said, he is a very sweet person and a very rough person outside, but to us we always found that he is a very great guide and a counselor. So I wish him all the very best, and his family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Thangam. We will now have a short cultural program by Varahini and Shweta, students of Anna University. Please come. Please. Very short program.
பாடு பாடு பாரத பண்பாடு மேலை நாடும் போற்றிடும் பண்பாடு விண்ணோடும் காற்றோடும் மண்ணோடும் ஒளியோடும் பண்பாடும் இங்கேதான் பிறந்ததென்று கொண்டாடு பாடு 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 பாரத பண்பாடு மேலை நாடும் போற்றிடும் பண்பாடு மொழிகள் பிறந்ததும் இங்கேதான் கலைகள் பிறந்ததும் இங்கேதான் காதல் பிறந்ததும் இங்கேதான் கற்பு நிலைத்ததும் இங்கேதான் வில்லவன் ராமன் சீதைக்காக வில்லோன்றியதும் இங்கேதான் அக்கினி தீர்த்தம் கோடி தீர்த்தம் அத்தனை தீர்த்தமும் இங்கேதான் தாலி என்னும் சின்ன கயிறு வேலியாவதும் இங்கேதான் தாரம் தவிர இன்னொரு பெண்ணை தாயாய் நினைப்பதும் இங்கேதான் தாயாய் நினைப்பதும் இங்கேதான் பாடு பாடு பாரத பண்பாடு மேலை நாடும் போற்றிடும் பண்பாடு சிற்பக்கலைகள் என்னென்ன சித்திரக்கலைகள் என்னென்ன நடனக் கலைகள் என்னென்ன நாதம் கீதம் என்னென்ன காளிதாசனும் கம்பநாடனும் கவிதை சொன்னது என்னென்ன ராஜரிஷிகளும் ஞான முனிகளும் வேதம் சொன்னது என்னென்ன விஞ்ஞானத்தால் முடியா இன்பம் ஞானம் தந்தது என்னென்ன இதயம் திறந்து சொல்லடி பெண்ணே இதைவிட சொர்க்கம் வேறென்ன இதைவிட சொர்க்கம் வேறென்ன பாடு பாடு பாரத பண்பாடு மேலை நாடும் போற்றிடும் பண்பாடு விண்ணோடும் காற்றோடும் மண்ணோடும் ஒளியோடும் பண்பாடும் இங்கேதான் பிறந்ததென்று கொண்டாடு பாடு 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 பாரத பண்பாடு மேலை நாடும் போற்றிடும் பண்பாடு.
ஆயர்பாடி மாளிகையில் தாய்மடியில் கன்றினை போல் மாய கண்ணன் தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. ஆயர்பாடி மாளிகையில் தாய்மடியில் கன்றினை போல் மாய கண்ணன் தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. அவன் வாய் நிறைய மண்ணை உண்டு மண்டலத்தை காட்டிய பின் ஓய்வெடுத்து தூங்குகின்றான் ஆராரோ. ஓய்வெடுத்து தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. ஆயர்பாடி மாளிகையில் தாய்மடியில் கன்றினை போல் மாய கண்ணன் தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. நாகப்படம் மீதில் அவன் நர்த்தனங்கள் ஆடியதில் தாகமெல்லாம் தீர்த்து கொண்டான் தாளேலோ. நாகப்படம் மீதில் அவன் நர்த்தனங்கள் ஆடியதில் தாகமெல்லாம் தீர்த்து கொண்டான் தாளேலோ. அந்த மோகநிலை போல ஒரு யோக நிலை போலிருக்கும் யாரவனை தூங்கவிட்டு ஆராரோ. யாரவனை தூங்கவிட்டார் தாளேலோ. ஆயர்பாடி மாளிகையில் தாய்மடியில் கன்றினை போல் மாய கண்ணன் தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. பின்னலிட்ட கோபியரின் கண்ணத்திலே கண்ணம் வைத்து மன்னவன் போலீலை செய்தான் தாளேலோ. பின்னலிட்ட கோபியரின் கண்ணத்திலே கண்ணம் வைத்து மன்னவன் போலீலை செய்தான் தாளேலோ. அந்த மந்திரத்தில் அவன் உறங்கு, மயக்கத்திலே இவன் உறங்கு, மண்டலமே உறங்குதம்மா ஆராரோ, மண்டலமே உறங்குதம்மா தாளேலோ. ஆயப்பாடி மாளிகையில் தாய்மடியில் கன்றினை போல் மாய கண்ணன் தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. அவன் வாய் நிறைய மண்ணை உண்டு மண்டலத்தை காட்டிய பின் ஓய்வெடுத்து தூங்குகின்றான் ஆராரோ, ஓய்வெடுத்து தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ. ஆயப்பாடி மாளிகையில் தாய்மடியில் கன்றினை போல் மாய கண்ணன் தூங்குகின்றான் தாளேலோ.
Thank you, Shweta and Varahini, for that break. I would now like to invite Professor N. Ramaswamy, retired professor from IIT Bombay. He was Professor Shunmugam's senior colleague and mentor during Professor Shunmugam's time at IIT Bombay. He's also a fellow volleyball player and a close friend since then. So, sir.
Thank you, Sujita. Mrs. Shunmugam, Professor Shunmugam. This morning, when I met Professor Shunmugam, inquired about Mrs. Shunmugam, Professor Shunmugam said she is doing Varalakshmi Puja for the welfare of the family. She has contributed a lot for the family by bringing up two young girls, grooming them to professional engineers. And Shunmugam said many times that he did not worry about those youngsters because his wife will take care of them. So thank you, Mrs. Shunmugam. Now about Professor Shunmugam. Madam said a mentor, so on and so forth. Okay. In 1997, I retired from IIT Bombay, came over to Chennai. In 2000, I had a major operation in Chennai. The hospital asked me to mobilize about 8 units of healthy blood as standby or in case of needs to support. I came running to this IIT campus, straight away to Professor Shunmugam's residence because I have the freedom to move in. Shunmugam immediately called Professor Shiva Prasad and both of them said, no problem, 80 we will mobilize. Most probably, he has also contributed his blood and a portion of that blood might be running in my veins, and that is telling Shunmugam, thank you, thank you, thank you. When I heard about the volleyball, he came from IIT Madras as a coach, manager of the volleyball team, and he has represented the university. I had long back represented my college, so that is the common link in volleyball. And as that slides mentioned, he is an excellent spiker, an excellent volleyball player. So beyond the four walls of the academic zone, we had a common thing to discuss. That was volleyball. He was my colleague for 3 years. We were fortunate because IIT Bombay has one very interesting philosophy, not to allow inbreeding. So we get people from various institutions, and Professor Shunmugam represented IIT Madras, moved to IIT Bombay. in 1960s and 70s, each IIT had an identity. When you think of IIT Madras, the German way of working is introduced. And in the academic program, as Professor, the head of the department mentioned, you give a lot of stress to hardboard graphics, manufacturing, and then other things. IIT Bombay had the Russian backing. There too, they stress a lot on graphics and manufacturing. But IIT Madras had certain additions. Compactness of design, aesthetics of products, consumer-centric design, so on and so forth. Some of these aspects during the discussion and with the students, he translated. And many of us appreciated, and in fact, the faculty colleagues and the students, they expanded MSS for Manufacturing Science Simplified. This was the rapport that he had with the students and the faculty of that institution. We have worked together very closely both day and night while organizing 3 AIMTDR conference, 3rd, 8th and 13. Those days, printing of the volume is the toughest job because it has to be in the 3rd conference was done much earlier. Letter pressing, each letter has to be composed and then printed, proofread, everything in the press. The 8th conference when it was organized, it was line printing. Professor Shunmugam was with us. We married people, we go and sit with the press during their time. Professor Shunmugam and another colleague, they go and sit in the press throughout the night, read the proof, correct the proof, alter it, bring out a volume of 600 to 700 pages through that, and the mathematical symbols are to be written by hand, photographed and transferred. The operation was very, very tough. And I think Professor Shunmugam, the way he worked as a team was fantastic. We very well appreciated that when he was IIT Bombay. Now, Professor Shunmugam has certain philosophies. Discussion, assertion, but never argues. As many friends mentioned, assertion. He has certain very critical views, as Professor Radhakrishnan mentioned. He will present it, he will listen to the other people, and he will convince or get convinced, whatever it may be, but he will never argue. An excellent philosophy of Professor Shunmugam. He attended my daughter's marriage, and I could attend both the daughters' marriage. That is a pleasant thing, so far as I am concerned. There are so many things that we talk about, both academic, research, and so on and so forth. Very interesting exposition of not only engineering, the human values and the human systems. We can hear from Shunmugam, discuss with Shunmugam. We had a very close interaction at IIT Bombay and later at IIT Madras, the BBC. On behalf of my family and myself, I would like to wish Professor Shunmugam, Mrs. Shunmugam, youngsters, their children, health, happiness, prosperity, or peace of mind, as Madam usually puts it, H2 and P2. She has another way. All the very best, Professor Shunmugam. Thank you very much.